What's up, everybody? It's about that time for another edition of the Crew Radio Show. I'm Kevin Swan, co-host of the show, and the crew are professional people who are also friends that come together to talk about the things you want us to talk about. We talk about it all, and we don't hold back. So come on and join us for another edition of the Crew Radio Show. Welcome to season 17, everybody, of The Crew. If you're watching us, you can tell we got a new look. We got a different cast. We got to talk about all the changes before we get started in the show. First of all, it's good to see you, C. How are you doing? You doing all right?
It is great
season
to be
17,
here. Oh
we
my
in
gosh,
here.
we made it.
We moving up to the east side. Y'all see how we doing?
Come on,
Todd,
girl.
Todd, how you doing, man?
Just busy.
Yeah,
but all
just
is
busy.
well.
Huh?
All is well.
You ready for another season, man?
I'm ready for another season. Got some really juicy topics.
You ready to shank some people, man?
Oh,
Because I'm surprised you ain't wearing your shirt
Metaphorically.
for your new, new season.
Well, you know what? I want to expose some stuff.
Oh, it's the season of exposure.
It's the season of exposure.
Okay. All right. So
And I know you like that, Sia. I know you like that.
yes, sir.
yeah. So before we get into the content of the show today, let's talk about some of the changes. So
Yes.
first, our cast will be different. So this year, Bishop Ray has taken on other ministerial responsibilities, and we certainly celebrate the accomplishments that he has in ministry and finishing up his doctoral work. So he will not be a consistent contributor to the show. Now, he may pop in every now and again, but we want to give a shout out to Bishop and thank him for his contributions to the show. So can we do that real quick?
Yes,
Thank Bishop
thank you.
for his time and season with us. Then we got Alvian. Alvian is still a part of the show, but if you're watching us, she's not here today because we're praying for her family. Okay,
Yeah.
she's got some family dynamics, some illness with her family members, and so we're believing God for healing and strength. So please send a prayer out for Alvian.
Yes,
and
please.
So, we'll appreciate
Love
that.
you, girly.
Now, and I have some exciting news. We're starting a brand new season, and we're going to have a new showtime. No longer on Tuesdays at 12 noon. We're moving it to Fridays at 6 p.m. on WHOV. That's right. No longer Tuesdays, Fridays at 6 p.m. on WHOV. But if you just stick with us here on our podcast, and you can check us out anytime you want. That's the good part of the podcast.
Yes.
So because of that, we want to give a shout out to producer extraordinaire Jason Covington.
Woo!
Working
Hey,
behind the
Jason.
scenes.
What's up, Jay?
Doing a good job, making
Yeah.
sure all is well. Now, they can't see you on camera, but they can hear you on radio. So you want to say something real quick?
God bless you. It is
Oh,
great.
here we go.
It is
Here
great
we go.
We go-
to be able to be here with the people and to be able to give you the agronutiousness of what God
We
has
need an organ.
done
Yeah,
for
we
you.
do.
And you will hear organ when this airs. So
That's a shame. That's a
The
shame.
producer's right.
The
That's-
producers. Yeah.
And that's the danger.
The danger.
Because we don't know what going to come in
We
the edit.
really don't.
In the edit
That's why we
part.
should be nice.
that's why you
We
be
should
nice.
be nice.
You be nice.
Yeah,
As
we
long as
gonna
you
be
like,
nice.
oh, it's good, man. It's good to be here. Good to be seen.
Yeah,
Okay.
we ready for a new
All right.
season.
Yes,
We
sir.
do this.
All right.
So y'all ready to talk about this topic today?
We are.
Well, listen, y'all, we're going to start off because we talk about the things that y'all are talking about, and we know over the summer, this issue, just was...
Blew up.
Man,
Blew up.
nothing else but Project 2025.
Yeah.
And all of the stuff that has come out of it, and people are having questions and want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So we got to talk about it.
Okay.
So Tom, man, start us off, man. You are a researcher. You are extraordinaire. You get the content right. Talk to us, man.
I try. So, Project 2025 is a conservative initiative that's birthed out of the Heritage Foundation. It actually was birthed and created back in April of 2022, but it got a lot of visibility and went kind of viral when I first heard about it, which is during the BET Awards with Taraji P. Henson, when she was like, listen, people, you better be aware that this is going on. And so, Jay, if you can cue that up so that they can hear exactly the comments of Taraji.
I'm telling y'all, you better show up and show out with them ballots. I'm being serious now. I know I look good, but it's a serious time. I need y'all to listen. Show up and show out when it's time to vote, because it's not just about the presidential election, you guys. It's time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up. They are trying to bring the draft back. Who do you think they're going to draft first? I'm not trying to scare us. I'm trying to inform us. We got 3 Supreme Court seats up, you guys. We need those seats, or we have no protection. Okay, I got it out my system.
All right, so wow, yeah.
So she set it off, man.
She set it off, man.
Talk about using your platform
There we go.
at such an important moment when the world, at least the Black world, is watching.
Come on.
And she did it quick. She's short, sweet, to the point.
Come on, 30 seconds. She hit it up, and here's the thing. That video went viral. And so people start saying, okay, what's this Project 2025? Is it real? People start saying, is it real? Is it real? Is it real? Well, guess what? Not only is it real, but they have a road map. I mean, if you go online right now and if you Google Project 2025, there is a website for Project 2025. And in this website, they actually have the manual.
Yep.
It is 922 pages of conservatism.
And the funny part is that they came out with it blatantly, right? Just put it out there in the open.
Really did it.
This is their words.
Right. I mean, not hiding it.
No.
It just so happened that Taraji just brought some light to it.
Come
but
on.
I mean, we're leading up to an election season. And so people need to understand what's in this 920 plus page document.
Now, the funny part about it is when it came out, old boy, I ain't gonna call his name, but the former president said, or he tried to distance himself from knowledge and any type of interaction or affiliation with this project. But the people who actually wrote and are directing this project, they used to work for him.
It's his whole squad. What?
They used to work for him.
Yes.
The director used to work for him.
Yes.
We're a part of his cabinet.
Yes.
So it's like, no, try that again.
Right.
So it's exposure time.
It is.
Well, and also, did you see that they had the video of him on the plane?
Yes.
With the director of Heritage Foundation, and he was giving a speech that said they're going to put together a plan and we're going to do the plan when I win, sort of deal. Paraphrasing, and now he's trying to say what plan? I don't know about the plan, sir.
Come on.
So
your whole squad is part of this.
So let's talk about it, right? And I know that, sometimes politics get a little tricky sometimes, right? That's how it is.
It's just what it is.
It's what it is.
It's what it is.
So can we have a conversation?
Yeah.
Heritage Foundation.
So we need to, first of all, tell the people what the Heritage Foundation is.
Correct.
So they can have a little backdrop. So the Heritage Foundation is a think tank. It's a conservative think tank. They were created back in 1973. And for them, their whole agenda is pushing the right-wing conservative agenda. That's their whole agenda. I want to push the right-wing conservative, and sometimes it's the most extreme conservative agenda. Now, they got their props, or they got notoriety when former President Ronald Reagan got into office back in 1980. And they really began to lay the foundation for a lot of the things that we're seeing today. If you listen to a lot of conservatives today, they will reflect, or they will thank President Reagan for a lot of things that he stood for, and a lot of things he promoted, like trickle down.
Economics.
Come
and all
on.
that.
And we still waiting for that trickle.
We're still waiting on that trickle. I ain't got my trickle yet. But we still, but we come on. Melody's from heaven, rain on us. We still waiting on that. But some of those policies they got it from the Heritage Foundation. And so he promoted those things. Now it's like 2.0 with the former president. And basically you need a conservative. They're betting that a conservative is going to be in the office in this next election of 2024. And if so, they already have a roadmap. They already know what they want to target, who they want to target, and how they want to lay this thing out. I mean, it's already set out, a roadmap, infrastructure already in place.
And some could argue, excuse me, Pastor, some could argue Some could sorry. Some could argue too that this has been in play well before the document got published, because when you look at what they were trying to do with the Supreme Court, how they got the margins, and so now it's 6-3, right? So it's six justices that will usually rule in their favor, 3 justices that will usually rule in the liberal favor. And then you look at how, some of the cases that have come before them are starting to chip away. So y'all talk about Schoolhouse Rock. When we learned that there were 3 branches of government,
yes,
and they all had checks and balances.
No more.
And then you look at what we have today, it's not what we learned.
Starting with the fact that the executive branch, there has now been a ruling that if you are a sitting president and you commit crimes while executing your duties as president, you have immunity.
And I just want to know if Biden heard it, because I'm waiting for Biden's crime spree of, more student debt being forgiven,
right?
Feeding more children,
right?
Yanking up some land and giving it to people for housing, because obviously you have immunity now.
He has immunity. So that was a setup. Because as we know, one particular former president has a lot of legal issues right now.
Correct.
And has
did you say
been a lot.
Because I think it's a lot.
It's a lot. like has been convicted already.
34 felonies.
Say it again?
34 felonies.
34. And he's facing felonies in Georgia. And I think it's a couple more places he's facing felonies.
New York.
So how is it then? And this is what people are asking, Ton, as a lawyer. How can someone with a felony run for president when many people who have felonies in impoverished communities can't even apply for a decent job or get a decent job?
Because the Constitution is silent in reference to the felony.
But you but you talk about it in the hood, but not at the highest position in the land.
I'm sorry. If you don't like it, then you elect someone who is willing to put in legislation to amend the Constitution, because that's the only way that you're going to get that change in effect. And you need 39 states to ratify that particular amendment.
And that's the federal Constitution for the definition of who is eligible to run for president. Now, what you are talking about is local legislation and state legislation and private communities and businesses that decide that if you have a felony, you can and cannot work here. Or in the states, legislatures. Can you get housing? Can you get health care? Can you vote?
Can you go to school?
All of that. So that is not all decided at the federal level.
Is not.
That is state and local level. So when we say every single election is important, it's because you have these consequences. You cannot work at Walmart with some of the things that former president has on his record, but he is fully and legally able to run for president.
So if I murder somebody, I can run for president?
TBD.
Technically?
If it was in your official capacity.
No, not even official capacity.
But it would have to be official capacity based off the Supreme Court immunity.
No, if I murder someone
he's talking about the eligibility.
Can I run for president?
President. Yeah, you can run.
You just have to be 35 and a citizen?
35 and a citizen.
U.S. citizen. Something wrong with that. There's just something
35 and a U.S. citizen.
And I'm not, this is not even about one individual.
Right.
There's just something wrong with that. When we try to aspire that the president should be the highest position in our country,
Well, let's talk about that.
Please.
The reality of it is, when our founding fathers, when they drafted the Constitution, they did not envision a Donald Trump.
They did not.
Let's just keep that real.
They did not.
They did not envision someone who would be as reckless and as gangster and thuggish as our former president. They just didn't envision that.
They would have tightened up language on all of the ambiguities that we're seeing the Supreme Court deal with now in his favor.
Yes.
They would have tightened up that language, because the main thing for them was, let's not have a monarchy anymore. The whole point of our independence as the colonies and then becoming the states was the checks and balances.
That's it.
And you also have to remember, they were not Christians. They were not. What the white Christian nationalist movement is trying to make the forefathers out to be, it's not historically accurate.
It's not.
And like, the Bible was not written for the United States.
No.
Like, all of the things that they claim. So when you unpack the mentalities that go into a Project 2025, you see that this is just a 900 plus page document of a power grab. and it's cloaked in conservatism. But then and Swan, we have to talk about all of the conservatives that are actually coming out for Donald Trump's opponent. Yeah. So calling it conservatism might actually be ultra conservative,
because
neo-conservative.
What we're seeing, Sia, is we're seeing people seeing the danger of the monarchy. They're seeing the danger of the lack of checks and balances and a lack of separation of powers. And because of that, they're like, we got to deal with this. If you listen to a lot of the sound bites now going, and I'm talking about on any channel now at this point, people are saying, if you want to save democracy, there's only one candidate that you truly can vote for.
Okay, well, let's talk about it because, I mean, listen, that's why we're here. We're talking about the show. Let's educate some folks on this. So, see, we know that we're going to have to do 2 parts of this show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right, so we know
and even that, trust me, we just gonna be scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So what one of my favorite TikTok influencers consciously says, research over me search. The document is online. There are explainers online, so we'll be sure to give those links. Democracy Forward has a people's guide to Project 2025. So we'll share those links so you can hear our words, but don't trust us. Read it for yourself.
It's project2025.org.
Yep, that's in their words.
That's their words. project2025.org, and it actually has the playbook. Matter of fact, it's called the playbook.
Right.
You can tap on it, and it will pull up the manual, all 922 pages.
Parts.
Yes.
So that's the legislative and the executive playbook, right? And then there's also the what they're trying to do with the courts.
Yes.
And then what they're also trying to do is fire a ton of current federal workers in order to rid anyone that might actually do the right thing.
Correct.
And hire people that they have vetted as MAGA folks to hire them to carry out the plan. So it's 3 different parts of it.
And that's giving him basically autonomy when it comes to the federal workforce.
Because he tried to.
But let's be clear for a minute. I want to make sure we understand.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So even though we know that the former president is kind of spearheading this is a conservative think tank, as you said.
Heritage Foundation.
So what's important to note is even if the former president loses the next election, this idea,
this playbook,
may still want to go on in the conservative circles. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it's been spinning around since 2022.
So this is not just maybe something that we can think about once the election is over.
Not a one and done.
No. So we got to think about this from a bigger standpoint. So see, I want to make sure that we got time to cover, because there's, I guess, at least 2 areas of this Project 2025 we want to talk about. One is very personal to you, which is women's rights and all that kind of stuff. So start there and let's have a conversation. What does Project 2025 want to do or not do for women's rights?
Right. And I think to your point, when we're talking about who's behind this, what's behind this, you can kind of put it all together. There's Project 2025 that came from the think tank. There's also Agenda 47 that is on Trump's website. Right. And then there are also the candidates' words. What are Trump and J.D. Vance saying out loud while they're campaigning? You put all of that together and you get a lot of this. And so you're absolutely right. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart is protecting bodily autonomy. And I think, it gets real touchy when we talk about abortion, but this is not just about abortion.
No.
So we had the Right to Contraception Act in Virginia, and it literally said that no state law or local ordinance shall impede access to legal FDA-approved contraception. That was passed with bipartisan support out of the House and the Senate in the states, in Virginia, and it was vetoed by the governor. They tried to pass a similar version on the federal level and could not get enough votes for how you have to close the debate in order to vote on it. So they could not get 60 senators. All the Democrats that were present that were able to vote voted in favor of it. And so it's a clear demarcation of, will you have the opportunity for you, your doctor, and your family to make the best healthcare decision that you need or not? So when you think about families that want to have children but can't, IVF, we've seen what that has done in Alabama where they pulled this old statute to say that those embryos had the same rights as children.
And let's not assume everybody knows what IVF is.
So IVF
what is
is in vitro fertilization. Typically when people need shots and assistance and some scientific maneuvering in order to have children. So it might be somebody else's egg and somebody else's sperm, and you're carrying a surrogate is carrying it. There are all these different kinds, but it is literally assistance in order to have a child.
Okay.
Right? So then there's abortion, and we've seen that in the states recently with the Dobbs decision, once states were allowed to ban abortion, that procedure is actually needed for healthcare should there be an instance where unfortunately the baby dies while you're carrying the baby. And there are women that have had to carry dead babies in their system and face getting sepsis because the doctors are too scared to do the procedure that they need to do because it's banned. And so all of these talking points and political things have really hit the interface of healthcare and what people need in order to be healthy and live. And so there's a lot of misconceptions about who is actually out there getting abortions. The majority of women that get abortions are actually married women. And they either are financially, emotionally, or physically unable to have a healthy pregnancy. It was just not the right time or a bad situation. They're trying to escape domestic violence, all kinds of situations. Then you look at the women and people that need contraception. So you think about when and if you want to have a family. The work that the Black church has done to reduce the rates of HIV/AIDS and teenage pregnancy is because of contraception. But then there's those of us that need contraception that has nothing to do with family planning. I have something called polycystic ovary syndrome. I was diagnosed at 16. If I did not have access to birth control or an IUD, an intrauterine device, I would not be able to leave my home, and I won't get into the details of why. But if you have endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, anything of the sort, or you know somebody that does, you know the cramps and the bleeding are out of this world. And literally, my doctor told me, you will not be able to have children, and this is going to be a long road, but we have a pill and a device that can help you. And that is how I've been able to live my life for the next 30-something years, But that is literally being come for. And we're not making this up. When Justice Thomas wrote I guess it's an opinion in support of the Dobbs decision that rescinded Roe v. Wade, right? So I want to make sure that we're understanding. The Dobbs decision basically said Roe v. Wade was no longer the law of the land. He also said, here are two other cases you should look into, and it was gay marriage and it was the access to contraception.
That's it.
So what does this matter to the person that's either too old, too young, or never needed contraception and will never be in a gay marriage? They're in your bedroom.
That's it.
They're in your bedroom. And if you're not doing exactly what they want you to be doing in your bedroom, you're at risk. There are some people that are talking about sex should not be for recreation, right? And you should only be having sex to have kids. That should tell you that we might all have some different philosophies. Why is the government the one that is coming for that? So when you look at Project 2025, when you look at Agenda 47, and when you look at the words of the Republican candidates, that is IVF being at risk of being an acceptable and approved form for family planning and family help. Abortion, even in the instances of incest, rape, and even when it is a literal minor that is pregnant, that with no exceptions in some states, we're seeing that happen. And then access to contraception, which has been legal since the 60s, right? Like we're talking about all of this is on the table, and it's not hyperbole. But, and Anton, we talked about this, the control factor is we want to determine when, how, and where women do these things.
All right. So to piggyback on that, so now they're saying we want to take away contraceptives. We want to take away your right to have an abortion no matter what the circumstances are. We also saying you cannot get a no-fault divorce. So unless you can go to court and be able to show reason why legally there are grounds for you to get a divorce, they're saying you shouldn't be able to get a divorce. And you could be in an abusive situation, or you could be in a situation that is not a good environment, physically, mentally, sexually, all of those things. And they're saying, I'm sorry, you can't get a divorce unless it meets certain criteria or certain grounds. In addition, the child tax credit, they're saying we want to actually give more money to the non-custodial father because we feel like the father should have more of a role in the lives of their child, even if they're not in the home. So we'll give more of a tax credit to him versus a tax credit to the custodial mother that has the child. There is a play in reference to single mothers, I know, don't breathe hard on me, Sia, but treating single mothers less than or a subcategory than those who are married. Again, it's just going after the autonomy, the rights of women. You don't have the same rights if you live a certain way or if you're trying to do certain things.
And here's the kicker. They are using words within the document that sounds like Christianity.
Correct.
But it is Christian nationalism, white Christian nationalism. So even if you read the document and you're like, well, actually, you shouldn't be having sex outside of marriage, and that is your belief, are you willing to say that is my belief, and the people that believe differently from me should be penalized criminally for doing something different than what I believe? Because this document is not Christianity.
No.
Christianity and white Christian nationalism are very different. They are not looking at the various ways that Black families exist in our communities. They are saying this one majority white nuclear family, and even the candidates that are married to brown people are catching heck, right? Because it's supposed to be a white man, white woman with little white kids. This is family. If you're not that, deal with it. But this is what our laws for the entire country should reflect.
And can I tell you one thing that's funny to me? One thing that's just ironic to me, some of the African-American proponents of Project 25, the vast majority, and I do mean the vast majority. And the only reason I'm not saying 100% because I can't prove 100%. But all the photos that I have seen of each one of those proponents, they're married to a white woman.
Yes.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Yes. Are you kidding me? They're married to a white woman. So I'm like, Loving V, Virginia, they may come for you.
Right.
And the only reason why they may not in this moment is because Clarence Thomas is married to a white woman.
Yes.
But I bet you if he hadn't been, he would have had miscegenation clauses in that Dobbs dissent saying we're going to go after gay marriage, we're going to go after contraception, and we're going to go after interracial marriage.
There you go.
Because this is what that agenda is. So this is not Christianity. This is not the welcoming words of love in Jesus. This is how do we use and hijack Christianity in order to get power over other people.
Now, to be clear, the Heritage Foundation allegedly prides itself on children and families, right?
Okay, I'm glad you used that word allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Right. Okay. Allegedly.
And as a conservative think tank, as you described,
yes, they are.
They are. It sounds like they are ascribing that the only way that they see families is, to your point, a nuclear family in a white community.
Hey, we're halfway through the show. Big shout out to everyone tuning in. Thank you all so much. If you're loving the content, consider supporting us by becoming a sponsor. Just contact us via email at thecrewradioshow757@gmail.com. Now stick around. We've got even more good stuff coming your way.
Right?
Yes.
Make America great again.
Correct. Which, if you're talking about this all started, Heritage Foundation started under Reagan. Didn't Trump also try to take the playbook from Reagan? I mean, he adopted a similar thing.
Well, he tried to take the political playbook, but if you look at his family, he did not quite take that playbook to heart within his personal life.
And if we gonna go a little deeper than that and expose a little bit more, he actually really took the playbook from Richard Nixon.
Ooh.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's who he took the playbook from.
That's accurate.
All right.
Richard Nixon, because Richard Nixon said, I'm the king.
Yep.
And he went after the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
He didn't have the numbers, but the Pentagon Papers and all those things that were going on, his tapes and all those things that he wanted to keep confidential, and he said he had immunity from turning it over because it showed what was going on with Watergate. If he had the 6'3", he would have been able to do those things.
What?
But because we had a checks and balance in place, he could not, and he had to turn those things over, and that led to Bloody Massacre Saturday, which led eventually to his resignation.
And we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're 25.
I still want to know whose playbook is the different baby mamas, the immigrant baby mamas, the porn star. I just want to know whose playbook was that, because I'm looking at the document and then I'm looking at real life and there's some inconsistencies.
So then let's talk about this.
All right.
Y'all calm down.
Yeah, we're going to calm down. We're going to calm down.
Okay, so we're still on women's rights.
Yes.
Yes.
To try to 25.
Yes.
How do you both see this in particular impacting the Black community? Well,
as I was, so when you look at attacks on women, you also have to see it as attacks on gender. And so whether you are one to say, I'm a call, whatever pronoun I want to, and you're not into pronouns, you're not into transgender realities, you're not into LGBTQIA+, you still have to understand the linkages. And so I would venture to say within the Black community, and I know this to be very true within Black church spaces and outside, we have a bazillion different ways that it looks like family. What's in your pews? What's in your courtroom? Who comes to my town halls? Black people will adopt each other and just become family because we will take care of you. Even if we disagree with you, we don't like what you're doing or whatever. The way that this shows up is that the people, we had talked about the older folks, that they're not going to give up their benefits and get married, right? They going to cohabitate, but they got benefits.
That's right.
So you got unmarried people who are living together, love each other, taking care of each other, but are not married, would not get the full benefits that we're talking about within the tax structures, could even be penalized within tax structures. We're talking about Big Ma that took care of somebody's child and not like, she is not a married mother of this child. So some of the benefits that would go to the nuclear families, the grandmas that are taking care of all the kids that the mom may be, struggling with addiction issues or whatever, they're not included. When you have same gender loving couples who are taking in all of the runaways or the kids that got kicked out because they came out to their family as gay, they're not included. So all of these different machinations of what Black family can look like, what we've talked about at Black family conferences and all of that, are not included in any of the protections, benefits, or incentives because they do not fit into that mold. In addition to, like I said earlier, the work that we have done to, just change the trajectory of where we were in the 90s with teenage pregnancy and just what we've been able to do with sex education and contraception. We have long-acting, I forgot what LARC, the LARCs are the contraceptives that last for years and years and years. So those have been available to low-income families that may not want to take the pill every day or whatever. All of that would go away. What the government has been able to do to help support Black family, and I'm not talking about the myth of the welfare queens or anything like that, but the government subsidies that help with health, food, housing. Look at what they're saying to Tim Walz. Governor Tim Walz allowed for there to be free meals for children.
Right.
And they are denigrating him for the work that he did for that.
Correct.
Who do you think in Hampton, Newport News, and our other listing areas are some of the largest populations that receive free lunch? Who do you think are the children that are being benefited by the Department of Education and some of the other things that we're going to talk about? Who do you think are being attacked when they're coming after voting rights? And so when we think of Black family, and we think of Black family in a very broad way, because we live in broad terms, all of that is under attack in these documents.
Well, in this very city alone, we know 90% of the children who are students in this city are on free and reduced lunch.
And that's why we had what? Newport News went to free lunch.
That's right. You had to. So, Tom, from your perspective, how do you see this impacting the Black community?
It's real simple. When they catch a cold, we catch pneumonia.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And so whenever they catch a cold, we catch pneumonia. So yeah, they may feel the impact, but we're going to always feel it worse because socially, economically, we are in a position that has always been lower than them. Mm-hmm. Our assets has always been lower than theirs. Our resources has been less than theirs. So unfortunately, it's going to have an impact on us more.
From just this one category alone.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you from a legal perspective, do you see any potential fallout if this were to come to pass that would impact you as Commonwealth attorney and having to prosecute cases or anything like that?
So whenever you have, like, for instance, Hampton, we did a fishbone or a strategic plan to address gun violence in our city some 3-4 years ago. And we looked at root issues. And one of those root issues is family. So if you are attacking the family or if you're creating greater stress within the family because of dynamics that they cannot control, like additional babies or people staying together because they can't get out of that situation and it's an abusive situation, of course they're going to come see me. Somebody's coming to see me because dysfunctionalism not handled in the home is going to spread out into the streets. That's just the reality of it.
So let me play the other side just for
radio.
This is for podcast. Let me play the other side
Yes,
just for a
sir.
moment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when we talk about social justice, right, what I've noticed is that for black people and white people, social justice is different.
It is.
Right.
Many times, not always.
Right. Okay. But the hierarchy of what items are most important for black people when it comes to social justice is different than for white people. That's how I view it.
Sometimes.
Say more.
Yeah.
So for me,
I'm with you. Yeah. That's what I said. Sometimes.
For me, it seems like for black people, we have biased policing and law system that's stacked against us and finances that are different and all the healthcare. We got all of that on the top of our list, right?
Yeah.
White people don't have that.
No.
So for me, it's
not true.
Hold on.
Not true.
They may have it at lower levels, right? But I think that for me, their number one social justice issue is abortion. And to me, that's why I think that you see all of this playing out because for them, they're thinking we need to save babies.
I saw white people in the streets when the Dobbs Act came out. I ain't seen no black people in the streets crying. I saw I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just got to keep it real. I saw white women in the streets crying like somebody just mugged them.
But there's history.
Yeah, I know that's history, but I'm just saying he made a statement. And I'm trying to address the statement or the perception.
When I have sat with white pastors,
that's white pastors.
White pastors in these communities. The issue for them, social justice wise, is abortion.
But that's white.
It ain't police.
But that's white pastors, and that goes back to white nationalism, Christian nationalism. But white
ain't all of them white Christian nationalism now.
But Christian nationalism, there's a whole segment of the population that's white, that's outside of that Christian nationalism. Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, they were in the streets when George Floyd got murdered. Yeah. Matter of fact, if you remember the ones that got killed by, what was that kid that went travel? He was 17 years old and traveled. Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. They were white. Yeah. The people that got killed, they were white. Right. They were the one that was protesting. They were white.
I think what you're really hitting on and what I'm hearing is that people's number one.
Not ours.
No. I'm just saying in general, people's number one political issue is what most impacts their life. And if somebody else's abortion is the most important thing to you, you are living in a life of privilege because that means you're not being over policed or killed by the police.
That's my point.
But no. So I can agree when it comes to rich white folks that want to control other people's lives because they have no understanding what it means to live at those intersections.
Which is the reason why they don't care about the baby after the birth.
But what is the percentage of rich white folks in America?
Well, I'm going to tell you, we finding that out.
We are.
Because the coalition of anti-Project 2025 in numbers is more than the people that are pro-Project 2025.
Absolutely.
But we just have to see how the Electoral College plays it out. Because this is not one man, one vote. because of how the Electoral College. This is why you're seeing more play in the swing states and all of that. So when you're a young African American in Hampton and wondering why the campaigns aren't talking about gun violence and what's impacting your life, is because it's not impacting the people that they need to vote for them in the same ways. And if you have limited resources, and Vice President Harris has limited time because we are at the convention coming up. Like, how do you have a message that speaks to everyone when you're really not talking to everyone? You're talking to the numbers because you need to get to 270 in order to win.
And let's pause real quick. So, because I need our listening audience to understand where our swing states are. So if you are in a swing state, I need you to understand one vote can make the real difference in the election. Look at Al Gore in that situation in Florida. And so Virginia has been called a swing state.
We are in play.
Pennsylvania is a swing state. North Carolina is becoming a swing state.
And that governor's race.
Yes. Arizona has now become a swing state. Georgia, because of the last election, has become a somewhat of a swing state. What is it? Wisconsin is a swing state. Ohio used to be a swing state, but it could potentially go back in that area.
If you are not in New York or California, and even there, because you can't take anything for granted, our point is your vote counts, period. Your vote counts. We even have a local example when Shelley Simons ran against David Yancey, and it came down to one vote. Out of thousands of votes, it came down to one vote. So out of all of the policy things that we are talking about, there is reason to vote for or against what you agree to. But just in a number stance, you not voting is a vote because it could come down to one or two votes.
That's right. But I got to throw one more. Florida.
Yes, period.
Well, I mean, you had... definitely Florida. I mean, you have Florida. But don't forget Michigan, and don't forget Wisconsin either.
I said Wisconsin.
Anything you saw where you saw both campaigns in the last 7 days, if you saw them come to your state, you were probably a swing state.
You're a swing state.
Nevada, too.
Nevada has become a swing state.
Nevada has become a swing state. And this is, I think, telling us, and there are lots of factors, right? Lots of factors. President Biden, in my estimation, amazing president. We are feeling the impact of the amazing work that has been done. We can list that out at a different time. But in the shift, since the vice president has become the presumptive Democratic nominee, what I am seeing are Republican former governors, Republican former mayors, Republican former congressmen in Virginia saying, hey, let me tell you why I'm for Harrison Walz. And it is because this document, between Project 2025, Agenda 47, and what the Supreme Court has already started to do, will take us back closer to the monarchy. And there won't be no July 4th no more. Because we're going to be back closer to how this country existed and how we were under England and literally a king-queen thing. When that man said, you won't have to vote again, I'll take care of that for you. We just need you to vote. That's what Trump said. He was not joking.
He wasn't joking. He was serious. And I'm going to tell you what was a gut punch for me. When they were arguing this immunity issue in the Supreme Court, and one of the justices asked the person for the Trump side, so you're telling me if someone were to assassinate an American in the capacity of being president, that person would get immunity, a political rivalry. They would get immunity under your law, and he said yes, and they still voted for that.
Yeah, see.
If you, I know we're giving a lot of information.
We are,
but
we're exposing.
One of the things that I think we really, if we want to get that gut check, is reading Justice Kagan's dissent
in that case.
From that case.
Yeah.
And literally spelling out how this decision is ruining America and what was supposed to be our American presidency and the three branches of government with the checks and balances. Immunity is scary. Another thing that and as we're talking about Black family, right? So Black family safety is something that I take very, very, very seriously. And I know that as we've had conversations about policing, one of the things that the former president had said was giving police absolute immunity in order to do their jobs. I know actual policemen in our area, and you ask the question, well, what is it you need immunity to do that you can't, like, what would you need? And they're like, absolutely nothing. Like, people should be held accountable. Good community policing comes with accountability. And he's saying this right as Sonya Massey was murdered while asking for help in her own home, right?
The lady said, I rebuke you. And he shot her.
In the face.
In the face.
In the
and
face.
then talked about her like a dog when he went outside.
And his history, y'all. Why would you have even been on a police department to begin with, a sheriff's department to begin with? The man had been either terminated or forced resignation
DUI.
like 5 or 6 different times. Why was he even on anybody's force?
Because there's no national database for officers.
Then
let's talk about that.
Can I come to why local and state elections are? So the people in Virginia took to the streets.
That's right.
Summer 2020. Governor Northam at the time called for a special session in August of 2020. By September, October of 2020, we had passed police reform legislation. One of the bills that I carried was to allow, let's say, for instance, this is just examples. If a police officer leaves the Newport News Department and applies to work for the Hampton Police Office, this is just an example, the chiefs of police can talk to each other about real stuff, not just what's in the file.
And you also gave me some power too.
Yes.
Because you gave
that's what I was going to say. Commonwealth attorneys.
Because I done already pulled some stuff. The Commonwealth attorneys can go and pull anybody's personnel file and say, let me look at that.
Okay.
Because before, it had to rise to the level of crime.
Correct.
In order for it to be communicated. And I know that's an aside, but just saying that because all of these elections matter and all of these decisions matter. But what would absolutely, I think, terrorize Black communities is for police officers, especially those police forces that are full of the Klan, police to have absolute immunity. How would that help the Black family?
And that's in Project 2025.
That is within the Project 2025 document and Trump's own words for what he wants to happen.
Yes. And just for a reference, you can see Justice Kagan's dissent opinion on SupremeCourt.gov. So if you go to SupremeCourt.gov, and look at Trump v. United States, you can see the decision and you can read what she shared.
In regard to presidents now being able to get full immunity.
Yes.
It was her dissent concerning immunity.
So people can understand.
Yes, correct.
So again, I mean, these are just 2 of the issues that's in this project, right? And it's 900 pages, right? And there's so much.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And I know we gotta do another show. We're gonna do another show on this, but just these 2 things, why it's coming at families, like. How do we help to really, because I think that a lot of people, honestly, are tuned out by this election for some reason. I think now Kamala's in, people have gotten more involved, but it seemed like before that, people was like, I just don't even care. I would agree
before, but there is an excitement in the air. Yeah. And because I'm going to tell you, I was like, you know what, at this point, I'm going to vote.
Right.
And it's going to be what it's going to be. And then she jumped in, and I'm going to tell you, I've been extremely excited. I am hopeful. I am believing that America is going to do the right thing and fight for democracy. And so I think there's a lot of us who got a burst of enthusiasm and hope as a result of that.
Are you more hopeful because you feel like she's a better candidate than Biden, or are you more hopeful that we now believe that whatever he's planning to do, that we got a chance now to block his plan? So is it more for her, the excitement, or more now we can stop what he's doing?
I think it's a little bit of both. I was one of the proponents of President Biden, and I like when he ran in 2020, I was one of the ones boots on the ground and even did a meet and greet. And so I love President Biden. I can't say enough about him. However, I think what was going on with him was a distraction. And because it was dividing us, we are weaker when we're divided. And I think him doing what he did was such a gentleman move on his part. He put the country before his own agenda, and he put the country before his own ambition. And him doing that united people. It united people not just within the party, but it united people from all aspects of the country who would not have voted for him, who would not even have considered him. And so that's where that hope comes in, where I think that we can stop the democracy assault that was coming our way and has been coming our way for a number of years, to be quite honest with you, because the Supreme Court's decisions that is a tremendous assault on democracy. There is no separation of power right now as we speak when it comes to the Supreme Court. And so until we can fix that issue, there's unchecked power from any person that they like. If they like that person, there's unchecked power, and that is dangerous because you can kill people, you can abuse people, you can do whatever you want to do, and they are the ultimate decider or interpreter of law. So if they say it's okay, I don't care. I can go and put a bullet in your heart right now if it's a federal violation. If they say ultimately that is okay, I get away with that, and that's scary.
And this is while taking $1 million trips, paying off student loans. This is while they are actively engaged in
unethical, call it out,
unethical, and I mean just disgusting behavior by blatantly taking money from people that have interest in the decisions that are being made.
And your wife was at the January 6th insurrection, and I called it an insurrection. That's what I said. Okay, it was an insurrection. That's what it was. It was. You know, it was. And she was there. So helped planned it.
I think I would add to what you're saying in this broad tent of a coalition that is behind Harris. Mm-hmm. And as I said, Republicans who are coming out and saying, look, I'm a Republican, have voted all of my life Republican, but this is why I'm voting for Harris. And this is not just one-offs. There are a lot coming out on MSNBC, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. All of that. They're coming out. So then there's the folks that are like, all right, listen, she's a cop. She always was a cop, but I understand why it's strategic for me to vote for her because they're talking about, her as a prosecutor and not being an abolitionist against, some of the leftist ideals for criminal justice reform. Then you got the people that are like, oh my gosh, this is our time. This is the first woman that we are going to get elected. And the identity politics or the representation is the motivating factor. So you see the sororities, you see majority white sororities, the Pan-Hellenic, you see all of these organizations that are amped for that because we have hope in that. And then you have people that are like, yeah, and I like her policies because she's talking about raising the minimum wage. She's talking about doing the right thing where you can have reduced recidivism, where you can have reduced repeating of crime because you help take care of community, right? And so all of this, so I think it is a lot of reasons, but you do not raise more than $300 million in 10 days by a single issue group. That is a broad coalition that wants to save our country coming together. You got Netflix people, you got corporations giving money, you got small dollar donors giving money. I have not seen this broad of a coalition behind one candidate in my lifetime, and I'm including Obama in that. This is something even more different than 2008 and 2012, and I think it needs to be notable that a lot of people are for her and for Waltz while also being anti-Project 2025. Correct. And then there's some people that are just anti-Project 2025, but want to be down for the ride because they know in 4 years they'll at least have a chance to fight for another day.
So in that, I mean, we've had so many shows in the past on the challenges of Black women being valued and respected, right? Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me how so quickly, you're right, so many people have come and supported and galvanized themselves around a Black woman, when that's just something that we have not seen in our country.
But look what it took.
What did it take? That's what I'm asking you. So do you think it's
country
or him being so
on
crazy?
The verge of disintegrating and becoming a monarchy? I'm of no delusion that this exact scenario would have played out without Biden stepping down, with her. Like, I'm of no delusion.
I gotta correct you on something.
Okay.
I don't think monarchy is where we were going.
Well,
Because the monarch in Britain, if they kill somebody, they get arrested.
that's true.
I think we were going towards a dictatorship. We saw what happened
right.
in Venezuela.
You're right.
And so I
That's
think
fair.
that's where we were going.
Very fair.
You know,
No-
because
no argument.
because both
Yep.
of us was using that word. And then I had to think about it for
you're
a
right.
second. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, were we going
dictatorship.
towards a monarchy? Or are we really going towards a
Because
dictatorship?
even the monarchy had the parliament. You're
Yeah.
right. This
So
is dictatorship.
even in that, right? Let's
Yeah.
just say hypothetically, Kamala wins,
Okay.
right? Supreme Court is still the same. It will not change after Election Day, right? So who's to say that the Supreme Court still won't listen to him, even though he's not president of the United States, because he still has some measure of influence because he's the ones that got him in.
I'll let you take it because that's the courts, but I do have a thought.
So with the Supreme Court, you can always legislate ethical restraints. You can always expand the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And so you expand the Supreme Court, there's nothing they can do about that. They can't stop that. And if you expand the Supreme Court, guess what? Now you don't have that issue anymore, because now you have a number of individuals who are just going to follow the law and not follow a person or ideology. And then also you can do executive orders concerning certain things that they've been getting away with concerning the ethics issues. Taking these expensive trips and going on the planes of billionaires and not reporting any of it, but yet their cases are coming before them and they won't recuse themselves. If I were to do any of those things, I would lose my license for that.
And then don't forget, a court case has to work its way through the local federal courts and before it gets to the Supreme
Correct.
Court. And who wins for president will be appointing a ton of federal judges
Correct.
for lifetime appointments. And so
Maybe that's the issue, because it's a lifetime appointment.
Well,
They've been talking about
that
changing
I
that.
don't know if we got time to go into all
They've been
that.
talking about that, but that will call for a constitutional amendment.
Exactly.
Because
And those
that's
are
in the
hard to get
and that
done.
is extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
So that will call for a constitutional amendment, which means you got to not only have a law that is passed by both chambers, but then you got to get 39 of the states to ratify it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
So look, we out of time for the show today. We are back.
We out of time.
Already. Season 17, man. Part 1 is
And
done.
we just scratched
We
the
just-
surface.
We're gonna talk about
we
too.
only did. Yeah, we just did
Women
women.
and the impact of the families is all we did. So we got more on this Project 2025. Stay tuned for future shows, and we got bonus content as
Yes.
well. You got to stay tuned for that also. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to someone else. Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Crew Radio Show. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. We're always looking for great sponsors to support the show. If your company would like to reach our highly engaged audience, please drop us a line at thecrewradioshow757@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for kicking it with the crew.